The sacred power of salt, the sacred geometry of salt. What if the most powerful spiritual weapon in human history has been sitting in your kitchen cupboard this entire time, dismissed as mere seasoning, reduced to culinary commodity, while its true divine nature remained hidden behind centuries of institutional suppression? What you're about to discover will fundamentally alter your understanding of material reality and spiritual power. Salt is not what you think it is. It is not simply sodium chloride, not just a mineral deposit formed by evaporated seawater. Salt is a crystalline technology, a sacred geometric structure that functions as an antenna, amplifier, and anchor for divine frequencies that most of humanity has been programmed to ignore. And Jesus knew this. He taught this, and the religious establishment buried it. When you examine salt under magnification, you witness something extraordinary. Perfect cubes, flawless geometric precision repeated infinitely at microscopic scale. This is not random molecular arrangement. This is intelligent design, sacred geometry encoded into physical matter. The cube is one of the 5 Platonic solids, the fundamental building blocks that ancient wisdom traditions recognized as the mathematical language through which consciousness creates form. The cube represents stability, grounding, and the material realm itself. When Jesus called his initiated disciples the salt of the earth, he was not speaking metaphorically about moral character or preservative qualities. He was identifying them as crystalline structures, geometric anchors for divine consciousness operating within the density of physical reality. The cubic structure of salt creates what physicists call a crystalline lattice, a 3-dimensional grid that possesses unique electromagnetic properties. Crystals can store information, amplify energy, and transform frequencies. This is not mystical speculation. This is documented science that forms the foundation of modern technology, including computer memory chips, radio transmitters, and energy converters. Salt crystals function identically at the spiritual level. They can capture ambient energy from their environment, store intentional programming placed into them through consciousness, and broadcast specific frequencies into the space around them. This is why every ancient culture, from Egypt to Tibet, from Celtic Druids to indigenous American tribes, used salt in sacred ceremony and spiritual protection. The biblical references to salt are far more numerous and significant than modern Christianity acknowledges. In Leviticus, God commands that every grain offering be seasoned with salt, and that the salt of the covenant must never be absent. In Numbers, God establishes a covenant of salt as eternal and unbreakable. In Ezekiel, newborn infants are rubbed with salt for purification and protection. These were not cultural customs or hygienic practices. These were encoded instructions for working with a spiritual technology that the initiated priesthood understood but kept hidden from the uninitiated mass. The phrase salt of the earth appears in Matthew 5:13, where Jesus tells his disciples they are salt, and if salt loses its saltiness, it becomes worthless. This is direct reference to spiritual potency, to the crystalline integrity of consciousness that must be maintained to function as conduit for divine power. Diluted consciousness, compromised integrity, corrupted intention. These cause spiritual salt to lose its savor, its power, its purpose. Why salt was suppressed? Suppression of salt's spiritual significance represents one of history's most successful campaigns of knowledge, extraction, and power consolidation. When the early church fathers systematically dismantled the mystery schools, absorbed pagan practices, and rewrote spiritual teachings to support institutional authority, they faced a fundamental problem. Salt was too accessible, too simple, too empowering. If common people understood that they could use ordinary salt to protect their homes, cleanse their energy, and connect with divine power without priestly mediation, the entire hierarchical structure of religious control would collapse. So salt had to be stripped of its sacred status, reduced to mundane substance, and anyone caught using it spiritually had to be labeled heretic, witch, or practitioner of forbidden arts. Throughout medieval Europe, the Church waged war against folk traditions that used salt for protection and blessing, placing salt at doorways, sprinkling it in corners, mixing it into bathwater for purification. These practices were condemned as superstition at best and demonic collaboration at worst. The Inquisition specifically targeted cunning folk, wise women, and village healers who maintained the old knowledge of salt's spiritual properties. Thousands were tortured and executed not for worshipping false gods, but for preserving practical spiritual technologies that gave ordinary people direct access to divine protection without requiring church sacraments, prayers, or tithes. This was not about theology. This was about control. The ancient world tells a different story. In Rome, soldiers were paid in salt, giving us the word salary, because salt was considered more valuable than gold for its preservative and purifying properties. But the deeper truth is that the Roman elite knew salt's spiritual properties and used it in their private mystery rites, while keeping the masses ignorant. In Egypt, salt was essential in mummification, not merely for preservation, but because the priests understood it absorbed and neutralized the energetic residue that could anchor the soul to the corpse, allowing clean transition to the afterlife. In Hebrew temple worship, salt accompanied every sacrifice because it sanctified, purified, and sealed the covenant between human and divine realms. Jesus himself referenced these ancient practices when he taught his closest disciples. The deeper mysteries, the Gnostic texts, particularly the Gospel of Philip, contain references to the salt of wisdom and the seasoning of gnosis that give flavor and preservation to spiritual teaching. These passages were deliberately excluded from canonical scripture because they revealed salt as a tool of spiritual autonomy. If believers could season themselves with wisdom, purify themselves with salt, and protect themselves through direct application of sacred knowledge, what need would they have for the elaborate priesthood, the ornate cathedrals, the expensive sacraments? The suppression was so thorough that even today, most people view salt rituals as New Age invention or cultural superstition, rather than recognizing them as fragments of a once universal spiritual technology. When someone dismissively says throwing salt over your shoulder for luck, they have no idea they're performing a degraded version of a powerful protection ritual that once warded off spiritual attack with the full authority of divine consciousness behind it. Salt is weapon of spiritual protection. The time has come to reclaim what was stolen, to activate what was suppressed, to remember what they tried to make you forget. Salt is a weapon, but not in any conventional sense. It is a weapon against forces that conventional weapons cannot touch: negative entities, dense energia, psychic intrusions, and the accumulated darkness that attaches to spaces where trauma, conflict, or malevolent intention has occurred. When properly consecrated and deployed with correct intention and divine authority, salt becomes an impenetrable barrier that nothing of low vibration can cross. This is not folklore. This is practical, spiritual warfare technology that Jesus taught his initiated disciples, and that protective forces throughout history have guarded jealously. The first technique is the consecration of salt itself. Salt in its natural state possesses inherent crystalline properties, but to activate its full spiritual potency, it must be charged with intention and blessed with divine authority. Take your salt, sea salt, rock salt, or Himalayan pink salt work best, as they retain more of their natural crystalline structure than refined table salt. Hold it in your hands, or place your hands above it. Speak with the authority of Christ's consciousness operating through you. I consecrate this salt in the name of divine truth and light. Let it become a weapon against all darkness, a shield against all negative forces, and a seal of protection for all sacred space. By the power of the Christ within me, this salt is now activated. Feel the shift in energetic density as the salt responds to your command. For protecting your home, create a salt barrier at every entrance. Place small lines of consecrated salt across doorways, windowsills, and any opening where energy can enter. As you place it, declare, "This threshold is sealed. Only light and love may enter here. All darkness is repelled and turned back. The salt creates an energetic fence that entities cannot cross." This is why in folklore, demons cannot enter homes protected by salt, not because of superstition, but because of actual energetic mechanics that the initiated have always understood. For personal protection, carry a small pouch of consecrated salt with you. When you sense negative energy, spiritual attack, or enter environments that feel heavy or hostile, touch the salt and silently invoke protection. The salt acts as grounding rod, pulling any directed negativity into its crystalline structure where it becomes neutralized. For spaces that feel energetically contaminated, after arguments, illness, or the presence of individuals carrying dense energy, place bowls of salt in the corners of the room for 24 to 48 hours. The salt will absorb the environmental negativity. You can actually witness this as the salt may change color, clump together, or develop moisture as it pulls toxic energy from the space. After use, this salt must be disposed of properly. Never reused, never consumed. Flush it away with running water or bury it far from your home, releasing the captured negativity back to earth for transmutation. Purification rituals with salt. Cleansing is not optional maintenance for spiritual practitioners. It is essential hygiene for those operating an elevated consciousness who inevitably encounter resistance, attack, and contamination from lower vibrational fields. Your energy body accumulates psychic debris just as your physical body accumulates dirt and bacteria. Without regular purification, this accumulation creates blockages that diminish your power, cloud your intuition, and make you vulnerable to influences you would otherwise naturally repel. Salt is the primary tool for energetic cleansing because its crystalline structure literally pulls negativity out of your auric field and neutralizes it through crystalline transmutation. Jesus understood this and taught specific protocols for maintaining energetic purity that the church has kept hidden for 2 millennia. The most powerful practice is the salt bath ritual. Fill your bathtub with warm water and add between 1 to 3 cups of salt. The type matters. Sea salt retains the full spectrum of minerals and carries the energy of the ocean, the primordial source of life. Himalayan pink salt contains 84 minerals and trace elements, creating a sophisticated energetic matrix for deep purification. Standard rock salt or kosher salt works effectively for basic cleansing. As you pour the salt into the water, speak your intention clearly. This salt purifies my energy, removes all negativity, and restores my divine frequency. I release everything that is not mine, everything that does not serve, and everything that blocks my highest expression. Immerse yourself completely if possible, including your head. Sit in the salt water for a minimum of 20 minutes, allowing the osmotic process to occur at both physical and energetic levels. As you soak, visualize dark, heavy energy being pulled out of your body and dissolving into the salt water. See the water around you turning gray or black as it captures what you're releasing. Some practitioners report actually seeing the water change color, though this is often energetic vision rather than physical phenomenon. When you emerge, do not rinse with fresh water immediately. Allow the salt to remain on your skin for several minutes, completing its extraction work. Then shower briefly to remove physical residue. For purifying objects, crystals, jewelry, tools, or items that have been exposed to negative environments, submerge them in salt water or bury them in dry salt for 24 hours to 7 days depending on the level of contamination. Salt draws out energetic imprints, cleansing the object's field and restoring it to neutral state. For clearing your personal auric field without full bath immersion, use salt scrubs. Mix salt with oil and literally scrub your body from feet upward, declaring with each stroke that you are removing energetic attachments and sealing your field. Pay special attention to joints, wrists, ankles, knees, elbows, where energy tends to get stuck. The critical final step in all salt purification work is proper disposal. Once salt has absorbed negativity, it must leave your space. Used bath salt should be drained away. Used dry salt should be flushed or buried. Never leave used purification salt in your home, as it radiates what it captured back into the environment. Activating the manifesting power of salt, we now arrive at the apex of salt mastery, the level that transcends protection and purification to enter the realm of active creation, conscious manifestation, and material anchoring of divine intention. Salt is not merely defensive weapon or cleansing agent. Salt is crystalline technology for programming reality itself. The same geometric structure that allows salt to capture and store negative energy also enables it to hold, amplify, and broadcast positive intention into the quantum field, where thought becomes form. Jesus demonstrated this principle when he told his disciples they were salt that must not lose its savor, its power to preserve and enhance. He was teaching them to become conscious manifestors, crystalline structures of divine will operating in material density with full creative authority. The foundation of manifestation work with salt is the principle of crystalline programming. Crystals hold information. Computer technology proves this, as silicon chips store data in crystalline arrays. Salt functions identically at the energetic level. When you charge salt with specific intention backed by emotional energy and divine authority, that intention becomes encoded in the crystalline lattice. The salt then continuously broadcasts that frequency into your environment, literally reshaping the quantum field around you to align with what you programmed. This is not visualization or wishful thinking. This is applied consciousness, using matter as the antenna for transmitting desire into manifestation. For abundance manifestation, take a bowl of salt and hold it in your hands during a focused meditation. Connect with Christ consciousness, that aspect of yourself that shares identity with infinite creative power. Pour your abundance intention into the salt with absolute conviction. Speak or think with authority. This salt now carries the frequency of divine abundance. It attracts wealth, opportunity, and prosperity to this space and to my life. As this salt sits in my environment, it continuously draws abundance to me through expected and unexpected channels. DCs don't place the bowl in your workspace, business location, or wealth corner of your home. Leave it undisturbed for 28 days, the lunar cycle. Then dispose of it with gratitude and create a fresh batch with renewed intention. For healing work, program salt with healing frequency and place it near the person requiring healing, or use it in bath protocols for the afflicted. The salt becomes a healing transmitter, continuously broadcasting the intention of wholeness and divine restoration. For relationship harmony, place salt programmed with peace and understanding in the common areas of your home. The crystalline broadcast shifts the entire energetic atmosphere, making conflict less likely and resolution more accessible when disagreements do arise. The key to all manifestation work with salt is the combination of clear intention, elevated emotional state during programming, unwavering faith that the work is effective, and allowing time for the crystalline broadcast to reorganize physical reality around your encoded desire. Salt is not superstition. Salt is sacred technology, a gift from divine intelligence that provides humanity with direct access to spiritual power, independent of institutional permission or intermediary validation. The Church knew this and suppressed it because empowered individuals cannot be controlled. But the truth persists and awakens in those ready to receive it. If this ancient knowledge awakens something in you, comment "I activate the salt" below to affirm your commitment to this sacred practice. Share this forbidden wisdom with someone ready to reclaim their spiritual power. Subscribe for advanced crystalline technologies revealed only to initiates.